I think the concept of retirement is dead. 50% of jobs get eliminated. I think there's no excuse now for not learning it. That it's going to drive unemployment to 20%. Answer this one way or another. Is it living to work or working to live?
We're all just dudes throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks. You know what I mean?
Like, I was talking to my barber, and he loves comic books. I said, dude, why don't you interview comic book guys or people you love and cut their haircuts? That'd be really cool as hell. Conversate, because I think that's a shtick. Tom Holland's got a film. I will just cut your hair. Because did you see the chicken shop gal?
No.
I'm not a big fan of it, but the whole idea is she take these popular celebrities and she throws them in this Croydon fish and chip shop with questionable levels of security and health standards. And it did really well, dude. They just yapped and ate chicken, man. It was insane. But I was like, that's my toxic trait. I'm like, my gal gets this as well, dude. Because I talk to her, I sometimes have to keep boyfriend Jack cap on and not my kind of day-to-day cap on sometimes, man, I must admit.
Yeah, you're like a fountain for ideas, man. I'm right there with you. But also on the girlfriend side of things, completely understand that. But I find when it comes to those sorts of supposedly serendipitous things where it's it's just us meeting at a fish and chip shop or whatever, there is a fine line between making it seem as authentic as possible without actually going over and then making it seem reversely not authentic, like that Sam Altman thing with Johnny that happened the other week.
Let's talk about the Sam Altman thing, because that was an interesting one. Because you mentioned in your last podcast, there was the bit where they were just casually grabbing a bit of brewski with the boys. And I watched it and I was like, when you start thinking about how the camera angles were shot, you were like, dude, this is really set up.
Yeah, I know, right?
Really set up. Oh my goodness, dude.
It was bad, man. That's exactly the sort of stuff that I'm talking about. I feel like you and I, okay, so for that barber thing would have been perfect, right? I don't know, Sam just getting shit, maybe not. Maybe it has more to do with the people than it does necessarily the scenes and stuff, to be real. Because now I'm trying to think, if Sam Altman was getting his haircut and was being interviewed by a barber and it was supposedly all casual, would that work? I don't know. I feel like you just go into tirades about AI and stuff.
It could work. Because I think people would think it'd be less polished. It's you can either say everything perfectly and not be authentic, or you can be a little rough around the edges and say stuff that offends people once in a while, but your authenticity and believability levels are 100%. And I think with think about Zuck, right? Zuck went through this, people call it a rebrand. I kind of respect the fact that he did MMA and he started picking that stuff up because he crushed it. And it was good for his brand. People say that was design. Maybe it was. I don't know. I mean, I'm all for AI guys doing jiu-jitsu, dude.
Yeah. 100%. But dude, the whole thing of, oh, he meant to do it. He leaked the AI photo of him with the long hair. He was testing stuff. It's bro, he's just a dude. And he just happened to see that people liked the picture of him with the curly hair. There's no grand conspiracy here. We're all just dudes throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks. You know what I mean?
That's hilarious, dude. Yeah. It's okay, well, dude, we were talking last week, right, about VO. And all that sort of stuff. And we also touched on, speaking of Sam Altman, serendipitous encounters and bars and whatnot, about this mysterious tech, right? I've seen a little bit more about it, and people are betting now on what they think this thing is. Because I saw the clip. Sam said, "Are you in a hotel room, by the way, bro? This is cool.
Yeah,
man.
You're just in Vancouver for a conference.
Dude, bars, hotel rooms, dude, no location safe these days." So he had this encounter, and he said that he's been living with this technology for a few weeks, and he's like, "It's changed the way I live." And so, how's that changed your opinion, bro, on what you think this thing is, yet?
Well, let's be real. The developer of a product is always incentivized to say stuff like it's changing the way that he lives. So, not really. Not really. This thing that I'm about to sell you has totally changed the game for me.
No, it's not a game changer. Nobody likes it. It's not fantastic.
No. Listen, I take this guy seriously. I think that he's motivated primarily not by sitting on a giant pile of money, but on having his name etched into the fucking silicon history books for the next 10,000 years. Yeah. And so do I think that he's always 100% honest in everything that he does? Probably not. But in his view, it's probably the optimal approach to get there. So do I think that the products that he works on, he believes are the best in the whole wide world? Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's intrinsically motivated to do that. He's extrinsically motivated to do that for investor capital and whatnot. And yeah, he I'm a big fan of Sam Altman. Despite all the stuff that I think he's gotten over the course of the last few years. I read all of his blogs a couple years ago. So he's been publishing not at like a prolific cadence or anything like that, but like every once in a while with his thoughts on how to do startups and how to do companies and where the world's going. And you see the evolution of his thinking in technology and startups and just how AI just grappled him and how he could not stop thinking about it. Like I'm talking like 15, I don't even know, maybe 15, 20 year time scale when he started publishing.
Wow.
And then you see it. And then all of his blog posts just start being like AI centric. And so I saw this and, I saw it zoomed out from, like the perspective of somebody that like really knew nothing about Sam Altman before I went into the blogosphere with him. And, after reading all of his writings, I can confidently say like, I'm definitely team Sam, if that makes sense. And I'm stoked on whatever the hell he drops. It's just like, do I believe that when a founder's like, it's the best product ever, I should like take it at face value? No, obviously not. The thing is, I have a little bit more context here, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because I really like
dude, I think it's good that you've followed him like that. I think if you want to be iconic, you need a turtleneck type of thing. Like, what's your turtleneck, right? Like, so that'd be like my question. Am I the guy that had yours? Might be the unbuttoned top, bro.
It might be, yeah.
You need to think of a shtick. You need to think of a little shtick. That's distinctive, right? He's a cool guy. I mean, like one of the most groundbreaking news drops this week, dude, is that I'm going to be saving $20 a month. I don't know if you knew this or not, because ChatGPT is going to be free in UAE.
Right, dude. I was stoked to talk about that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I'm going to be saving $20 on that, dude. I can't wait. Dude, I will say this. It sounds like the UAE are making moves in AI. Like they actively really want to be making moves and doing cool stuff happen, which I'm all for. I think that's freaking awesome. Like, I wish a lot of countries adopted that philosophy, but they seem to be wanting to push it out. I think it's more of a statement piece. I don't know what kind of agreement is happening with OpenAI, whether they got some crazy, like, country. I've never seen a country buy AI, like, access before. I mean, I think that's freaking insane, dude.
Yeah, I was looking forward to talking about this because of that exact thing. Has a country ever done it? A country is a scaled-up organization. Countries are organizations. Companies are organizations. You could sell licenses to companies. So can you sell licenses to whole countries? Now, we're already seeing at like the zoomed out level, OpenAI trying to launch products in certain countries like the UK, let's say, and then having some sort of regulatory barrier that prevents them from going all in. So they have to say ChatGPT access is not available here until the, legislation or whatever changes. But like kind of on the inverse, it's like, maybe some next product launch will be preferentially available only to people in specific countries because that country freaking bought it, I think like probably the simplest way to interpret this is just all of the money that the UAE has. I think it's literally just, hey, you guys want $600 billion? Yeah, sure. Like, we'll make it available to your whole country. Yeah.
Is that 700? 700 what?
I don't know. I don't know the numbers. Just throw it out.
No, I mean, it's just because like Trump said, I could just double that. And it's like, all right, we'll double that. So maybe they've just got a lot of money. I think because the way the UAE is run, them like it's not like an elected government. They can make quicker moves. That was one of the observations of some of the guys and gals I spoke to out there. Is like, if they don't like something, they can just change it really quickly. It's like you and I running a country. We'd be like, "No, that's cool. Let's just do it." And they think it's cool, and they just buy it. So it's interesting. Maybe it's like, I don't know. You call it like artificial intelligence democratizing AIs.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, dude, I think like, okay, I don't know what the best free model is. Like I was speaking to my chick, and I said, you should just obviously ChatGPT that, right? Because I think I've run out of images. I said, what do you mean? And she hadn't bought Plus, and I said, well, hang on a second, Nick. I said, we need to have a serious conversation about this. I can't have my chick Rita not been on the Plus subscription from ChatGPT. So I can have some very stern conversations about that, man. I must admit.
That's the dividing line. Yeah, that's what your Tinder. If you don't have ChatGPT Plus, don't even swipe right.
Dude, this is yeah, absolutely. Like, get the hell out of here if you're not into it. Yeah. But I was dude, funny, like a small little double click into it. It's like Claude 4. Like, people are raving about how good the natural language is with Claude 4. I mean, I was asking an interesting question with Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT the other day, and I must admit, like, Claude coming back at me, like, it just felt more human-like, actually, with this new bumper. So I don't know if you've had that experience, man, but I'm a big fan of Claude 4 at the moment. I'm back on Team Claude this week for a little bit.
Okay, cool. Well, next week, next week maybe Gemini's gonna grab you. I'll be real. My take on all of these models is it's like if this is like the forefront here, like Model 1 goes up a little bit, but then Model 2 goes up a bit, and then Model 3, and then Model 2 then, and then Model 1. Like that. Basically, from now until the end of time, it will just be like iterative announcements of like, this model's better now. And then like next week, it'll be that model's better now. And it'll be that model's better. And in the reality, there's a limited amount of training data out there right now. And everybody's just employing the same iterative approach.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like what we were talking about. I think not on a podcast that we published on this channel, but back when we were doing it on either of our channels. But basically, there's like two differences. There's like that iterative approach. Then there's that like groundbreaking Steve Jobs drops an iPhone sort of approach, which is just like a paradigm shift completely. It's 0 to 1. And so right now we're very much in that iterative approach where they're just trying to squeeze out little percentage points here or there because they're all training using the exact same approach as some sort of generative pre-trained thing on like the same data, basically the entire internet. And, Google might have a little bit more data here because of YouTube or whatever. And then OpenAI might have a little bit more data there because they made it free for students or whatever. But like at the end of the day, it's not like a massive gulf. So that's my opinion on the model. Like, yeah, for sure. Claude's probably better this week. Maybe another model's going to be better next week.
Next week could be different, right? Well, it's just all the synthetic data being like an accelerant for that development. But there was this thing about Claude dropping its voice model. Like, I don't know if you've noticed this, dude. ChatGPT, it's gotten a what do they call it? Like what's that thing where they like extend their speech? It's like a specific. It's just I think it's gotten significantly worse. Like the actual chat voice.
I would agree with that.
Claude's bumped. I actually stopped using it, to be honest with you, bro. I was like, I can't talk to this anymore. This is crazy. It's taking way too much time to do it. Yeah. I was watching an interesting conversation as well, dude, about like the new job and opportunity landscape with AI, specifically as it pertains to businesses and people. One really interesting feedback, one lens to throw on this is what they call, Daniel Priestley calls it cloud and dirt. And this idea that we were trained for a world that does not exist. And like high school, for example, I don't know if you remember this, but I was told if you don't learn how to code, you're done. You're toast. You're out of right. Dude, you may as well queue up at the job center right now because you're going to be fried, dude. And it was like, we have this, people in the workforce. I think if you are a business hiring people, it's important to bear this in mind. We have this, societal push for everyone to get a degree, everyone to train and think a certain way. And I think the job economy, the opportunity economy, whether that's creating an agency, a SaaS, or driving your own business in some respects, is not congruent with the way most people have been trained. What she calls this difference between like cloud and dirt. This idea that you can be based anywhere, you can sell to any customers anywhere, and this kind of like classical job of, I was out for a dinner with the Chikorita the other day, and a corporate party walked in, and I was like, holy crap, I forgot how corporate was. Everyone's wearing their check shirts and the chinos and talking corporate related stuff, dude. And I was like, man, I don't know, dude. I think it's just like because we're in the entrepreneurial space or what it is, but like I think that shift's going to be bigger, man.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I'm at a conference right now in Vancouver, and there are certainly some forward thinkers out here that don't like ascribe to that model and are like us, but the vast majority of people there are absolutely cooked. They are so beyond screwed. They have no idea. They have zero, I guess. The main thing that brings together all of these job opportunities, whether you're an accountant or whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're selling agency services or whether you are going door to door doing some marketing, or whether you're some auditor or whatever the hell, every single job on the planet, the one thing that kind of brings that together is basically your ability to like sell an idea to people, right? And so I feel like you and I kind of jumped off that beaten path and we just optimize for our ability to sell an idea to people. Whereas everybody else, like they take a tiny bit, a little sliver of that into their job, but then they spend 99% of it focused on something domain specific, like, accounting or reading some spreadsheets or data entry or filling out a form or whatever. They get really good at that thing, but then the how to sell an idea to people thing is just a freaking afterthought. But at the end of the day, like that is the one thing that binds together basically every like high impact cloud and dirt job out there, right? Or position or role or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I completely understand how that is, and I've had to interface with a lot of people that I don't really think fully understand that, and they think that like the world that they were raised in is going to be the world that they're living in forever, and they don't understand just how artificial the last like 50 years is. The whole idea of like the like, oh, you wake up and you go to work, and you work for, 7 to 9 hours or something at the office, and then you come home and you come into a loving wife and kids and whatever. Regardless of your thoughts on the matter, whether you're trad family or not or whatever, like that's a very artificial idea. That's really only been around for like 50, 60 years or something. And specifically that refers usually to like the golden age of like, Western independence between like the 1950s and like the 1990s or something like that. Like that's a very isolated sort of idea. So is the idea that you go to school and that you study and you do whatever. Like we're all like living for, it's almost like we've all been like brought up on this like this 40 to 50 year slice of history that is completely out of touch with what is actually going on today. And everybody's just still thinking, 40 or 50 years ago. It's kind of the same way that like when I use a keyboard right now, when I type an email to you, Jack, I'm using an input method, the QWERTY keyboard that was developed like 150 years ago. It's just so hopelessly out of date.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right about that. It's going to hit people like a freaking freight train.
It is very well said. I mean, like, here's the harsh truth people aren't thinking about. And that's that, we were told this dream of 2.4 kids, meatloaf on the dining table, a dog called Rex, the American dream, whatever it is. Like, I don't think that's the case. In 1940s, the whole way that people work, like the traditional, like Henry Ford championed this work week of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, the whole dual income household that got pushed upon us as an economy. Like, we are effectively, like, we don't have a long-term generational memory. We only remember the things that we've seen in our lifetime and realistically probably our parents' lifetime. So now when you have this disruptive AI force that is so counter that thing, people cannot like wrap their head around it. The CEO of Anthropic put out this notice, right, where he basically said that, Dario Amede, which I think is a cool, it's a little bit of a fresh name, right? He's of the view that AI could eliminate 50% of entry-level white-collar positions in the next 5 years. Dude, I must admit, I always wondered white-collar versus blue-collar. I was like, what the hell does that even mean? When, funny enough, dude, I actually I wore a white shirt that was slightly blue once to a sales job, and they had cameras in the office. And they said, hey, that guy needs to go and change his shirt. So I actually had to leave the office and come back with a slightly white shirt once. So I take white collar very seriously. But 50% of jobs get eliminated. I mean, like, there's disruption. I think like it's almost like we have these houses now that are built on very unstable foundations because the benefits aren't fully realized just yet. And actually, I think there is going to be huge shocks to the workforce, dude. I think 50% could well be reasonable. Within 5 years, who's to say if it's exponential or not? I mean, like, what's your thoughts on that, dude? I mean, where do you see this going in 5%? So he's also of the view, by the way, that it's going to drive unemployment to 20%. But I think like gross economic output would probably increase, but unemployment would also increase, interestingly.
Yeah, I think so as well. Well, I think that's just like by nature, almost like a deflationary economy, right? Like you get more efficient with fewer people, which is the ideal all along, right? Right now we've been getting more efficient with more people, and that's fine. But like ideally, the total number of people working would go down, and then the total output of the economy would continue to go up. I think it's unfortunate because if you think about it, like the one thing that everybody's worried about, adults, essentially, like us now, we are now in that camp, Jack. But in case you didn't already know, I figured that out the other day.
Yeah.
Shit, man. Saw some wrinkles in the mirror. I don't even want to talk about it. But like, dude, shouldn't the whole idea be for like nobody on planet Earth to be working and then everybody to be happy? Like, isn't that the whole like goal? Like, to be honest? Like, isn't it that you just like get to follow your passions and hobbies and like genuinely do the things that you like and create art and frolic around in meadows and shit and like have a lovely family or whatever your goal is? Like work kind of has inherently that connotation that it's like something that's not necessarily like, it's not necessarily something you want to do. So maybe it's just about the etymology of the word. But I guess the point that I'm making is like people in our generation, we hear about job loss and unemployment and we're like, oh no, that sucks. Dude, like I want unemployment to be 100%. Like I do. I think that'd be awesome. I don't want us to have to all be traditionally employed or whatever. Like, I'm basically unemployed right now. I'm just doing a bunch of stuff that I find really cool and obviously makes me a ton of money and that's fine. But like, shouldn't the idea be for unemployment to go to 100%? Now, the issue is our current economic system just doesn't really rectify with that, right? Because if you're unemployed, well, you're kind of screwed. You got to go on, depending on the country, your social safety net. You have to make a bunch of compromises as to like the security and health of your family and the people that are close to you and stuff like that. But like Dario Amodi is, he's big team universal basic income, which as a mega capitalist, I didn't really wrap my head around until quite recently. But I think universal basic income actually makes more sense for like an AI based future where most of that work is like completely automated away. And I think he's just, I think he's just being bang on, man. There's no reason why we need to, aside from like friction in deploying these technologies, there's really no reason why so many people need to be employed on like, mundane, monotonous, white collar entry level jobs, as he says.
That's you touched on some interesting points there. I think frolicking in the meadows is definitely the societal goal we should shoot for. I think like as well, like so I was always romantic about UBI because I think this is a question of value capture, actually. Like if AI, makes the economy more efficient, who captures the value from that? Is it held by, Umbrella Corp and all these evil corporations, or is it socialized to some extent across the world? Like I still think you need a strong capitalist society, but I do think like socialization of the additional AI value is an interesting one. I think they did a study on it as well, bro, where they gave people $2,000 a month for not working. And the idea was like, hey, if you get this $2,000 a month, this AI money, we'll call it an AI stipend because AI is awesome and we don't need to be flipping us some burgers or driving trucks and all that sort of stuff. We can just, or even the white collar sales job, right? Like voice agents are just crushing it. We don't need you to do anything. You stay at home, here's your 2,000 shut up money and just enjoy it. Shut up, right? The idea is that they start businesses, they create local cafes, and which to my delight, they're making beautiful flat whites. Like I want people in the world that are just experts at flat whites and like these kind of crazy esoteric interests and things. But what they found again, like in this particular study, I think was that they didn't actually go out and earn more money. It wasn't a driver for them going out and doing more. And I was disappointed with those findings because what I wanted the findings to be was, dude, they like crushed it. But it was almost like the requirement to get after it drives it. And it comes back to this question, I think, bro. And actually, people can say this is a philosophical question, but we have to answer this one way or another, which is it living to work or working to live? And work itself and a goal, I think, does become the goal. Like, I think the concept of retirement is dead. Because the concept of retirement was work in a factory, Nick, we're breaking our fingers, we've got a whole sweat, we come back home to the meatloaf and, savagely, all the stuff they used to do in the 40s or whatever. And then you'd say, thank God I don't have to do this anymore. Oh God, it's Monday, thank God it's Friday type of mindset, right? But actually, I think, how many people do you know, like when they retire, they're just like, within 3 years, they're gone, right? So it's almost like, we have to be careful we don't get to a point where people don't need to work. I think you've got to have something like, that inspires you to do stuff. I mean, it don't happen with like, the closest comparable really, I guess, is like the Industrial Revolution to some extent, right? Like what happened to all the guys who are making, horns for the freaking horses and crap, right?
Yeah.
They just find new things to do, which is why you can't be a dinosaur. You have to have learning agility. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the outcome of that study is really unfortunate. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I read it, I was like, this one's pretty well backed. It's randomized controlled or whatever the heck. I think it was the most comprehensive UBI study ever performed.
Yeah.
I think there's also a question of necessity. So whether or not it's even the most optimal way for human beings to live, it may be the most necessary way for humans to live in the short term, because otherwise you will have, Dario Amorti's saying 50% in the next 5 years, 50% of people unemployed without an income source in an economy that requires you to have an income source. And when you put, and hell, even if they're all on unemployment or something, when you put that much of like a taxable burden on the rest of the people that are actually producing value in that interim, good things aren't going to happen. I don't know what the optimal long term looks like, to be honest. As I mentioned, like I feel like that should be the end goal. We should all just be free to pursue our own interests, and consciousness should be a blessing. And the fact that you are born on this earth should be the most amazing thing ever, because you're going to get to live forever and float around for the universe and whatnot.
I think like you're right to kind of like TLDR that. I think it's like, I think it's exciting. I think the future's super, super exciting about it. I think if there's ever like a signal of, we've got images now that can create freaking realistic movies, Nick, like start freaking learning this stuff like yesterday. I think there's no excuse now for not learning it, to be honest with you. I'll go there and say, I don't think there's any excuse for AI laziness. I think you just got to
even be irresponsible if you're not doing it. Like irresponsible because the potential leverage in this is so crazy. It's like, you know, almost like not understanding how gravity works or something like that. You don't need to like go into the freaking 4D physics wormhole. You don't need to know everything about it, but you should know that, you know, when you throw a ball up, it tends to go down after a while, right? You should know some of these more fundamental things.
100%. So we got some interest from Anthropic about world's best coding model. Have you heard much about that?
Recent drop. This is now the best coding model on planet Earth as of, I think, a few days ago, and probably for at least a week.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, at least 7 days. That's how good the information.
I'll be real. I'm not using these models for like super advanced coding or anything, but I did play around with Codex, which was OpenAI's model that they dropped a couple weeks ago. And it's not just a model; it's like a whole like infrastructure. It's pretty cool. The whole idea is that you have like an autonomous agent that performs coding tasks for you in the background using reasoning, and because reasoning typically takes a lot longer, the loop, you know, might be like a 5-minute thing, 10-minute thing, 15-minute thing. You don't actually like just code with it in your browser. You just like send off a task and then it goes and does it while you do other stuff. So this is cool to me because now, you know, you're taking advantage of like I guess the usual opportunity cost of having to wait for the model to respond to you, which is technically unproductive time. So you could actually create a big project management queue with a bunch of different tasks like, you know, refactor code base A and, you know, create a module that does X, Y, Z. And then you could like segment that list of tasks into things that AI can do and things that humans can do. And then you can just like take all the things that AI can do, just queue it up. And then while you're waiting for that, then you work on the stuff that humans can do. So I'm pretty excited about that sort of future because I've been trying to do that myself with my own task list, my to-do list. I was thinking about the other day, like, hey, what about using models like, you know, Gemini coding model, not Gemini, the Anthropic coding model and, you know, OpenAI's Codex and stuff like that. It's like, what if I take my big to-do list, which is just ever growing and really annoying, and it's like 100 things on it now, and I break it down into stuff that Nick can do with AI, and then stuff that AI can do. And then what if I segment that? Let's say 30% of that is stuff that AI can do. And then what if I just send all that stuff off to something like Codex, have it just do all of the stuff for me and eliminate 99% of the work involved? I think that'll be really cool to do. And the idea that I don't have to wait for AI, I don't have to like talk to it, hey, you know, change it to be X, Y, and Z. Like I don't actually do anything. It just does it all autonomously. That's really sick. And I could see that being like a huge point of leverage over the course of the next couple of years.
That is really cool, dude. I actually love that idea. Like split your to-do list out in that sense. My goal at the moment is to make my to-do list shorter, insofar as I can. On it, look at my. I'm sure you may find this right. You're writing it out, and they just seem to keep getting longer and longer and longer. And I'm like,
yeah,
no, one big thing today. And I call it my admin destruction list, which is like a little. Let's flip those things out there. Dude, did you see on the coding front that Unicorn? They got like exposed for actually not being AI, but actually like a kind of like an elite factory of Indians who were doing the in the background.
Yeah. Oh my God.
What was this company called? Like, I'm going to find it right now.
Billion, started with a B, man. It's brutal. I can't believe that happened.
This
isn't the first time this has happened.
Builder's AI. This is not the first time this has happened either, by the way. Oh my goodness, right.
Do you remember, I don't know if they rolled it out over in Europe, but, in North America, Whole Foods from Amazon was rolling out a store where like you didn't actually have to like go and check things out. You would just walk into the store and you'd pick up an item and then you'd leave. And so everybody's like, oh, we're using AI, this new AI model that does all this stuff. Anyway, it turns out it was just like a factory of people. And I don't know if it was in India or if it was in Kenya.
Don't tell me it was Indian.
Yeah, it was like a lower cost of living country. And when that came out, that it was actually just a bunch of people like staring at your screen, what the hell did that guy pick up? You need to write that down. I was like, dude, like, can you get any worse than this?
Isn't that actually outrageous? Because like, if you think about it, like the output is exactly the same. It's just how the thing's being done. It goes from being, wow, look how cool technology is, to, oh no, they're just like weirdly kind of watching all your movements and stuff. I mean, like this one here, right? So according to this, the Microsoft-backed firm's AI companion, Natasha, has been a bunch of Indian coders. It's like that Scooby-Doo thing. Like they pull off the map. Like,
it's just always the country. It's an Indian flag.
I'm imagining on the production, like, well, like wheeled in and like wheeled out as they're going along and stuff like that, like doing all the work. I'm like, the thing is, like, from a startup point of view, I get it. I get this idea that, you know, I call it the magic box, right? Where like an input goes in and output pops out, and the user doesn't really need to know what happens inside the box, right? All they see is like this magic effect. But at some point, that magic box can cross over into just outright criminality and fraud. When you're saying it's like, because like, it's okay to launch something automated and do it manual for the first couple as a proof of concept, but you know, you can't, I guess, raise 9 figures on it saying it's actually AI when it is just, you know, 1,100 Indians who are just kind of like doing it for you. I think there's like a crossover point there, right?
Absolutely. It's my old adage is, like get out there and start doing things. But I feel like I don't know if this guy was in maker school, Jack. He might have taken it a little too literally, you know what I mean? Move fast, break things, worry about the consequences. Rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission, you know?
That's it. That's it. You make the moves, ask questions later. Ask questions later. That's kind of what they want to do. But it's like, yeah, this seems to happen quite a lot. And it's like people are very bullish on AI and doing this sort of stuff. But like, I don't even know how this Indian contact center got found out. The other one I saw was, I think that was it. So this concept was, we have an AI app, Nick, and it is a agentic shopping experience. So you'd basically be on something and you'd be like, hey, I kind of want this in blue or red or something. And then it's like, great, well, we'll just buy that for you. And like, wow, it's clicking buttons, it's doing all this sort of stuff. Or you think, wow, AI is great. Indians were actually doing it by ground again. And it just completely shut down the whole thing. So this isn't a one-off incident. This has happened multiple times. I don't think it's quite a Theranos type of event where the thing doesn't really work. But I wonder if there's something in that like raising capital investment cycle. Like I was looking at some data, I think 53% of investor capital, like kind of like from a venture VC perspective, is an AI related stuff now. So there's a lot of money sloshing around in these companies. We know this ourselves from all the AI startups and stuff. So I wonder if there's some kind of incentive thing of like, you have this kind of funnel of lies where you make one slight concession and you get another one, and you're early invested, then the next investor, and all of a sudden it's too late to stop, and then you're embroiled in fraud and stuff.
That's exactly what it is. This is one of the reasons why I've always been reticent in terms of accepting any investor money, or really just like dealing with that sphere. I've always broken things down into like services and info products, and then like unicorn startups. And I much preferred services and info products because these are cash flow heavy, and they also deal with what customers want. At all points, you and I optimize for the customer experience. We optimize for how do we make our products as palatable to customers as possible. And to me, that's the most interesting part. What the unicorns and startup guys are doing is they're trying to they're optimizing for the investor. They're trying to make their products and stuff as optimal for the investor as possible. And when you start a business and you basically ignore the customer completely and you're not optimizing for the customer experience for the first part, I don't even think it's a real business. I think it's more akin to a Ponzi scheme. You mentioned Theranos over there. For those of you guys that don't know, that was, I think, Elizabeth Holmes,
She did the turtleneck, dude. She didn't get her shtick. She took the turtleneck. I think there is actually an image, not to derail your point, of her in a turtleneck. I'm just gonna fact check that while you're speaking, bro.
Sure. Yeah. No, there is a one in her in a turtleneck. I 100% remember that. Yeah. She like straight up went Jobs. She was supposed to be like the female version of Jobs and like disrupting the economy. So she was a great marketer. Let's put it that way. But her whole thing was like, so it was some crazy VC backed startup that like could do blood tests in a kit and in minutes find out stuff that would otherwise take like weeks to find out. And it was really cool. But I think that's another thing where she probably really believed in the merits of the product. Do I think that she's like a terrible person or whatever? Like, I mean, it's hard for me to say, morally speaking. She probably really believed that this stuff actually worked. She just like had yet to find the concrete evidence that it worked. And she's like, all right, well, we're going to work on it, and we're working on it in the background. And just for now, I'll just do that one tiny thing. I'll just tell this one person that it's okay. And that'll buy us some time to like get the results. And then I'll be able to actually take this product world and save all these people. Like she probably believed to the very moral fiber of her being, like Sam Bankman-Fried did with his whole thing, that like, what he was doing was right. And what she was doing was right. But like, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, that's optimizing for the investor experience. And I don't really believe in that. I understand it's like a necessary part of the game to gain leverage and maybe you optimize for the customer experience later. But like, yeah, I've just always thought that so much of that stuff's a Ponzi scheme. It's like basically completely irreconcilable with my personal worldview, which is that you should optimize for the people that are going to be using the thing, human beings, not just like...
I agree with you 100%. That's my driving force, is like customer. It's not just something you say, it's like something that you believe, right? It's like, having worn both hats, having a board like of investors and that sort of stuff, it just feels different. Like it's not the same as having a boss. But there's like a kind of responsibility aspect to it, and also just on your time as well, because like you have to prepare all these kind of forecasts and, like updates on financial performance and stuff, which is okay. And actually, you would kind of expect that. That's like a very reasonable thing to do. But being completely transparent, like it's very easy as the CEO of a business to start getting caught up in a lot of like, faff. And actually, one of my takeaways after that experience was, I don't think I would raise money again. I would sell, but I don't think I would take on investment, I think, because it's like we talk about vectors of freedom, right? Like a lot of people follow us, like they want to pursue financial freedom, find that shape, and we help them on that journey with, the stuff we do. But it's also like there are different vectors of that. One is obviously cash itself. Time is another dimension, but also sort of like responsibility and not having a quote unquote overlord or boss that you report into. And the difference between having a board and not is that like if you kind of just don't want to deal with a customer, it's like, hey, we're going to miss you. But it just adds layers of complexity to the situation when you do have a board. Like Sam, for example, if Sam was a 100% owner, like he wouldn't be where he is now if he hadn't taken on investment. Of course, Oprah wouldn't have done. But if he was, I just guarantee the whole experience would have been a lot more enjoyable for him if he didn't have to contend with an incredibly like long list of investors and lawsuits and that sort of stuff. So it's like, I don't think it's the path's wrong. It's just very, very different. And it's like people, it's probably worth going through to get a sense of what you think about it. But like, yeah, it's very, very different than the kind of stuff that we do.
Hit the nail on the head. A lot of people get into business to avoid politics. When you do something like that, you are embroiling yourself back in some sort of politic. You are justifying that why your business is performing so well, as opposed to just like making your business perform well. It's the sort of thing that I deeply
work about work. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You can talk about the stuff you're doing, of course, and you should. That's where luck meets opportunity. Serendipity is in doing the thing and talking about the thing at a certain optimal proportion. But that to me is just horrendous. It must be terrible. And in Sam's case, he's not optimized. Again, he's not optimizing, I don't believe, for his life enjoyment. If he was, he would not be doing what he is doing, because I'm sure he's being worked to the bone. And I'm sure he's flying all goddamn around the world and high stakes meetings constantly. And his cortisol levels must be through the roof 24/7. But, he has this grand vision of, the future that he's going to build and like the name that will be carved into those big silicon chips when the computers turn us all into carbon.
And yeah, you're right with that, Nick, because it's also like, I think the bigger you get, the faster your decision-making velocity must become. And I think you're constantly presented with crises, and the crises keep changing. Like if you think about from Sam's perspective, right? He wakes up on one day, Scarlett Johansson is filing a lawsuit because the voice kind of sounds like her. And I was like, who cares, right? If he's a voice actor, I don't get it, whatever. But like, it is what it is type of thing. And then he's got like Elon Musk lawsuit. I mean, like, if you were getting sued by Elon Musk, that would be somewhere near the top of your like worry list, wouldn't it? Of things that you want to attack and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like every day. And, I had some talk about this at like every big, like major threat that you survive, the next one kind of feels a little bit less of a problem. So it's like, I think that's almost part of the territory of getting bigger, is that the things that get thrown at you get bigger as well. Like it's like new levels, new devils.
Absolutely. And not to mention just the increasing bureaucracy that you must deal with at every step of every chain. Because now, in order to get anything done, you have to discuss this with like government officials. You have to discuss this with like actual legislators. You have to get them on board. I can't imagine the stress that guy's under. I'm not going to call him a poor guy. I was about to, and then I was like, no. Can't imagine the stress that poor fella's under. Rough stuff.
Well, dude, it's funny. This is a thing about like organizational politics, right? We're talking about B players and C players last podcast, but it's also like, I think team's good, but there is definitely, I think there's a number of when your team reaches this number, it just gets kind of complicated. And one of the most annoying things about growing, I say annoying, it's a privilege, but it's people. Like really, like people end up being like, so-and-so touched so-and-so's butt in the office. Okay, like, well, I don't know. There's crazy stuff that happens, right? I'm not saying this happened in my workspace, but like, I just mean generally speaking.
It's cute and Jack touching everybody's butt.
We have a no butt touching policy in the office. Just for clarity. But it's like, as you like, I think this is kind of beautiful sweet spot of having a business. Either you do solo or you have like a small, tight knit, highly mobile team that run it, or like one person with like contractors. Like, I don't think the goal is really to build out like 1,000 employees. Like that is in itself something very, very different. It brings its own kind of sets of, quirks and unique stuff with that. Like, I don't know if you saw Iman Gadzhi was talking about which I thought was interesting. He did an ad saying that we the space is in some kind of crisis, and that he's of the view that there's like a trust deficit at the moment, and that like he thinks like kind of solo people in the education space there'll be multiple people making like $1 billion in like 5 years, because he thinks that that's going to increase. What are your thoughts on the market with that sort of stuff, dude?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think there is a trust deficit. I've tried to build my brand around authenticity, specifically because I thought that authenticity would be at a premium over the coming years. I already knew that it was at a major deficit in the info product space, because obviously so many Theranos style smaller player founders that are like, I'm making $1 quadrillion and I can make you that money. Just buy my book. What's the cost of it? $1 quadrillion. It's like, I don't know. Proof's in the pudding, right? But
Proof is
one of the reasons I really like this long form stuff that we're doing is you really get a feel for people's character. Like, one thing I'll say about Donald Trump is I think something that was pivotal to him winning the election was he did this podcast with this guy called Theo Von. I don't know if you know who Theo Von is.
Yeah, the comic guy, right?
Yeah. And I don't actually know anything about him. My buddy just sent it over to me, and my buddy's like rabid anti-Trump. He really dislikes the man for some justifiable reasons, of course. But he was like, hey, this is the first time I've not wanted to punch the guy or something. And I was like, what do you mean? So I clicked it, and it was just like two dudes, one dude like being much older. He's like, my grandson loves this show. That's why I wanted to do it, or some shit. And then Theo Von obviously being hilarious and asking him all sorts of crazy shit. That probably did more for like Trump character building than like a quadrillion news segments or press release or announcements or whatever. Just because it's like long, it's like him being there for like an hour, like you can't really escape. You can't really make shit up during that whole hour, It's not like a high production value sort of thing. Like in our case, it's just like, you in the corner of what I presume is a pretty nice room, I imagine. Although I think I have your tree, Jack. Was that an IKEA tree? I think I have that tree.
Nothing tree, yeah.
No, not that one, man. The one behind you immediately.
Which guy? Yeah, we got so many trees going on this room.
Yeah, dude. I totally got your tree. Anyway, I'm not saying that to knock your tree. It's a good tree. What I'm saying is you're just a dude in the corner of your room, okay? And I'm just some dude right now in a hotel room. Like, there's nothing special here. There's nothing magical. We make screw ups all the time. So, yeah, like I think Iman Gadzhi is a good example of somebody that has a lot of history of that. You have like videos of him at like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, or whenever that started his YouTube channel. I think that sort of authenticity is just going to be more important because there's a trust deficit. What do you think about the whole brand strategy there, Jack? Because you've been making more long form content with me on this pod, and I know you've been doing more long form content, like asking people questions, interviewing them and stuff.
What was my thought on long form content? I think podcasts are great because, like you said, you can't hide in a 60-minute, 3-hour conversation. And it's authenticity building. And I think there's a thirst for that kind of conversation. Like the political election in the US was almost certainly decided by podcasts. There's no way getting around that. And actually, what's really funny is I think people are very intelligent, but they don't use their brains as much as they should do. And you get paid proportionally to how much you use the stuff between your ears, and employ that. And if you look around, you'll see that actually, if you can stick with something, be consistent with it, it will crush it over time. Like, for example, the Altman podcast went from just a couple of bros like during COVID, and they just said, hey, let's just put a camera on for these conversations we've got. And then over time, they absolutely crushed it. So I think there is something about long form. And my view on like content strategy and stuff is, I've kind of actually taken a step away from volume. I'm moving it now to longer form. Like, I'm recording a video this weekend. It'll be the longest one I've done. Not necessarily in volume, like length, but just effort. Instead of doing 4 videos of effort level X, I've just coupled it all into one. So I'm doing like long, like more highly watched videos. And I think that's because we were talking about this off screen, right? About like a year ago, it was like, I can't get enough of this content because I just need to learn as much as I can. Now I think it's a quality play over a quantity play. It's my take on it, because I think like there's a lot of stuff you can always be watching. So I think the differentiator probably is going more on the quality side. And you kind of get to the point, so you can see this with MKBD, I think that's his name, the guy at the tech reviewer.
Yep.
He got to the point where he said, hey, there is no way I can actually cover every single AI update. I don't know if I've been interested in your point of view on this as well, bro. I just can't cover, hey, this new thing, and then there was this. It's like you just be spinning your wheels constantly. You almost become a kind of update channel. So he said, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick like the two things that are like aligned with my avatar, and I'm just going to go really deep on one thing and get known for quality. So I think the smarter move now to me presents is like, you do want a certain level of volume, but at the same time, I think you're better indexing towards quality and longer content. So that's kind of where my head's at with it. I think podcasts are cool. I'm really excited for ours here because it's almost like for me practicing what you preach in terms of like being consistent. I like what I'm really excited about is like in like 5 years time, 20, 30 plus, we can come back and say, well, dude, like we actually like documented this week by week, and they can get to episode like 3 or 4 and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that, and this is just a personal question, but do you think that like the sort of content that you and I were creating a year ago has gotten commoditized? Because content can get commoditized, just like products can get commoditized.
I think it's like, I think initially the big value was blueprints, I think. And I think that's commoditized now to some extent. I think to some audiences it isn't, like the kind of like just getting into it. But I think for your core educated demographic, I think like a lot of them, like I'd say it probably takes 2 to 3 months of training to get to the point where you can kind of realistically build 90% of what you want, right? So I think, I mean, I was looking at data, there's so many people creating content on AI automation stuff now compared to a year ago. Like it's like a lot more people. So I think it's the era of the niche, the era of it's like almost, I'd say phase 2 of the creator economy in this space. So my pulse on it, bro, is that like, yeah, I think there's still a need for that, but I think it's getting to the point where you can probably kind of just find that out from a lot of different channels now. Well, what do you think?
Yeah. I would, I align with that. I think that if we're frank, there are only so many ways you can put together, let's say 5 modules, right? It's just like a combinatorial thing. And there's like an optimal way, and there's fewer optimal ways to do it. And we just happen to do most of those optimal ways. And now, you were on this space like a year before I was on this space, right? So from your perspective, I'm probably like much more of a newcomer and whatnot. Back then, I imagine the space was even more different. But as somebody that has now been in it for a little over a year, I think there are only so many ways that you could put stuff like this together, and then you have a lot of people that take, let's say, blueprints that you developed a couple years ago, make a couple of minor little tweaks to it or something like that. And then that's even more derivative. And then that sort of saturates that sort of blueprint. So you got to move on to a different platform. But at the end of the day, the shape of them is always the same. And then, like the comparative value for listening to Nick over listening to XYZ thousandth person that's doing the content is relatively low. So I'm really excited to see this like longer form, deeper dive thing. That's a really interesting approach. And I feel like that does make sense. Intuitively to me.
But you did like a huge video, man. Are you finding like that strategy resonates with you and your audience going deeper rather than like volume? Because I know you were putting out a lot of like cool content, dude, on your daily channel, and it's like effort, right? And it's that question of, are we getting maximum? Because the thing is, like you and I, like we're talking about our chicks, right? How like to date somebody who's like pursuing purpose and like really, really trying to like really help their audience and putting the work and the hours in. One of the questions that I'm sure you and I ask ourselves a lot is this the best return per unit of intellectual capital? And what length, what mix up is that? And it's a question I think that you can never really set and forget. It's that you have to keep asking it. And sometimes it might be, dude, we need to freaking crush volume right now. And other times it's like, actually, I think it's these platforms in this way. It kind of changes a lot, which is like the kind of devil you have to play with in terms of thinking about what's the best strategy and focus point.
True. It's not like what is the best strategy. It's what's the best strategy right now. And I think, we would be silly not to admit that market conditions change so quickly. And there's so many opportunities that appear and then disappear ephemerally that we do need to constantly be asking ourselves that question. Right now, I think the strategy, for me anyway, is not doing daily posting on my main channel because I saw a massive decrease in the view to subscriber count within the first 24 hours. Percentage wise, I went from 15% down to like 5% or so. So I lost about like a third of the people that were seeing me, probably just because of audience fatigue. I think for me, it's probably now like deeper dive, 6-hour style mega course type shit. And I'm sure that will not be the optimal strategy because, pretty soon everybody's going to be doing that. Let's be real. So
Yeah.
then there'll be some other attack. But isn't that the amazing thing about business? And I mean, like, content is like an accelerated form of business too. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that just the amazing thing about it? There's just always something new that we do. The bar is always up. And so we constantly have to be inventing better tactics and strategies to stay ahead of it. That's why I
Yeah.
love just giving away everything for free and then having a million people take that and then push me from behind. And I'm like, oh, are those guys doing the same shit? Oh yeah, they're all doing the same shit. And so I have to like
Dude,
erupt.
I know. Well, dude, a little funny joke. A buddy of mine was hiring a developer for like N8N.
Yeah.
And he said, dude, he's just out of curiosity, where did you learn N8N? He goes, I learned it from this guy called Jack Roberts online. And it's like, did you joke? And said, no. He said, like, dude, like, he trains at my MMA gym. He's like one of my best guys. And he's like, and he said, he called me up. He's like, dude, you're not going to believe this. And I was like, but it's funny. Like, us training people and like, it's like, you never really see second, third and fourth order effects of it. Content is like really, it's a good point. You're right. Business changes all the time and like content strategies change. I think like the way I'd bottom this out is that like, I do think that like, the education landscape for AI automations has changed a lot in the past 6 months and 3 months. And that's why like it's so one of the beautiful things about our friendship, bro, is like how we kind of like, I'd say, not in a self way, I guess it's kind of like maybe leaders in the space to some extent. Like we think about and talk about this stuff about actually where's it moving, where's it shifting, and we can kind of like, I think it's awesome that we in our community can benefit from that stuff and like just be really transparent and say, where do we think the ball's moving and like what does it people actually need? I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and then in real time, you could see us talk about it and then actually try and implement it over the course of the coming weeks. I find that really interesting too. It really is practice what you preach, and that is at the core of the authenticity thing that we were talking about earlier. So I appreciate the hell out of you, Jack.
Dude, likewise, man. So, dude, are we going to get every week? Is we going to get one less button on the shirt? Is this the plan?
Yes, we will. Eventually, we will be down to 0 buttons, and that's
it, man.
Probably be the most watched episode.
I freaking love it, dude. That's it. We'll do this, it, man. We've got the voice with the buttons. It's all paper and popping, dude. Are you going to be in a hotel room for next week's episode?
No, I shall not be. I will finally be back in Calgary, and I'm moving in to a place stably now for the first time in like 6 months. So yeah, I got a year lease. It's a gorgeous place right by the water, right by the river. I will be calling you from there every week henceforth, dude. And I'll make sure I'll try and touch my studio. It's not going to be as good as yours, Jack. Just
dude. Well, dude, I appreciate the very generous words, man. But like, I'm going to be in France in an undisclosed location. But like, and like, I don't know what the background's going to be like, dude. There's maybe baguettes, people with mustache. I'm going to start growing out a mustache on my French thing, dude. So I'm going to make it baguette themed background. Work on my French, dude. So,
I can't wait, dude. Au revoir, mon ami.
Yeah, au revoir, bonsoir, I think is what I would say to that. Broski, have a beautiful week. Thanks for tuning in. And dude, I'll catch you in the next one, Chief.
Sounds good, bro. Cheers.
All right, Chief. Cheers, bud.